Welcome to Community Updates. I'm Emmanuel Ortiz.
And I'm Victoria Strait. Massachusetts open burning season started in January and runs through May 1st. You must obtain a permit before you can burn. For Sterling, you can get a permit by visiting sterlingfd.net. And in Lancaster, you can either visit the fire station or visit lancasterfd.net. Burning hours run daily from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. as long as the fire warden has deemed it safe. You'll need to call in before you start burning for the day. To find the rules for open burning, contact your local fire department or visit mass.gov. The VNA and the Sterling Senior Center are sponsoring an Elder Keep Well clinic on Tuesday, March 9th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. To make an appointment, please call the Sterling Senior Center at 978-422-3032. The virtual concert From Ireland to America with Roger Ticknell will play on Conant Public Library's Facebook page on Wednesday, March 10th at 6 p.m. You do not need to register to watch this performance featuring traditional Irish and Irish American songs. On Saturday, March 13th, VCA Sterling Animal Hospital will be having their spring rabies clinic. All towns are welcome to attend, but you must wear your mask and remain in your vehicle. Cats who must be in carriers will be vaccinated between 12:30 and 1:30, and dogs who must be on leashes will be vaccinated between 1:30 and 3.
Take a civics refresher about Lancaster beginning March 10th via Zoom at 6:30. As part of the Lancaster Listen and Learn series, you can learn about what boards do, the town's government structure, and even what your taxes are buying. Find the Zoom meeting ID and passcode on the Community Center calendar on ci.lancaster.ma.us. On March 4th at 6:30 p.m., the Rainforest Reptile Show will be presenting Leaping Lizards, part of the Rosemary Davis Nature Series. You can learn about the largest lizards in the world. Register by visiting theirmemoriallibrary.org or emailing mcaulfield@lancasterma.net. The Short Skirts Oh My event will be on March 11th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Learn about amazing women of history from historian, lecturer, and performer Anne Barrett. To register for this event, please email ksilverthorne@lancasterma.net. And now we head over to Lex Thomas, who is interviewing Sterling's town administrator, Kellie Hebert.
Thank you, Victoria and Emmanuel. It's a beautiful morning here in Sterling. We've got a little bit warmer temperatures, and so the snow is melting. So it feels like spring might be coming. And of course, spring means that we're looking at things like, the annual town meeting and the town election. And I know that people have a lot of questions about that sort of thing. And so I am very pleased to have with me today the town administrator, Sterling's new town administrator, Kellie Hebert. And I'd like to introduce her because also in these days that we can't all get into the Buttrick building and whatnot, it's much more difficult to get to meet our officials. So Kellie, welcome, and thank you for spending this time with me this morning. How are you today?
I'm terrific. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is great. I mean, this is COVID right here.
Absolutely.
At least I get to see you without a mask on.
Exactly. And we get to chat. So that's always a bonus. Now, Kellie, you've been in post now. When did you start in Sterling?
I started December 1st.
Okay.
So I thought that I would, close out 2020 on a good note, and so far so good. So it's been a wonderful welcome that I've had here.
Fantastic. And just for our viewers who don't know you and don't know your experience, just in a nutshell, how did you come to be town administrator, and what's some of your experience?
Sure. I actually have over 30 years experience in municipal government. How did I get to Sterling? Well, I mean, I guess it really has to start back with how did I get to local government? I was born and raised in Lowell, grew up in the big city, as you will, but and what attracted me to Sterling was that small town feel. So, well, I live in a city, and I went to school in Boston. I went to Emmanuel College, and then soon after graduating from there, I went to Northeastern. I was offered free tuition to get my master's in public administration at Northeastern. I was a teaching assistant at the time. I worked part-time for the city of Boston while I went to school. And then, I went home to Lowell. I got married and lived back in Lowell with my husband. And, I just thought that I've always grown up in the city. My mother was a first generation homeowner. And, there was a time, an aha moment, if you will, when I was in college and I went home for the weekend and my mother was complaining about the neighbors leaving their trash out. And they would leave the trash out and not just they would leave it out the day before collection. They all week long they would put out their trash. And there were no barrels. It was just the little, plastic bags from the supermarket. So you can imagine when trash pickup was on Monday morning, they would start putting out their trash bags even Monday night. So you can imagine the wall of trash that would be piling up between the houses. And so I got home on a Friday and there was the wall of trash. And my mother would be complaining about it, and I'd ask her, what's going on here? It looks awful. It smells terrible. It's making a mess. What's going on? And she talked to me about how upset she was that the neighbors kept putting their trash out. And the same thing. It looked bad. It smelled bad. It just was terrible. And so after about the third time of listening to the saga continue about the trash, one day I just looked at her and I said, well, we've been talking about this. Have you ever called anybody? Have you called someone from town, from the city hall? And she just looked at me and was like, they don't want to hear from me. They just want their taxes paid. Nobody, I wouldn't even know who to call. And I just looked at her and went, well, what if I told you, just call someone from City Hall. Oh, I don't even know how to get in touch with them. And I said, well, why don't we just pull out the phone book? I flipped open the page, Lowell City Manager's Office. Here's the number. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to leave it for you on Monday. Call them. They don't care. What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. So on the next Friday, I came home and there was no trash built alongside the fence. And I mean, noticeable difference, right? And so I said, Mom, what happened with all the trash? Did you call City Hall? And she said, you're not going to believe what happened. She said, I called City Hall. Like you said, I called that number. I talked with someone in the city manager's office, and they connected me over to the inspectors and the health department. And she said, before you knew it, the inspector was out. He talked to me. He talked to the neighbors. And then he told me that he talked with the landlord. He told them that they need barrels for their tenants. Their tenants cannot put out their trash before the day before collection. And he came back over to me and said, you know what, if you have any problems, here's my card, call me and I'll take care of it. And she just sort of like gave me like this smile and she's like, thank you so much for making me do that. And I just thought, Mom, I didn't make you do anything. I said, I gave you the phone book. You were the one who called. I said, I think it's great. And so that was a moment that I can look back in my career and say, I felt so happy for her that she had the opportunity to be empowered by that exercise. So I didn't call for her. I gave her the information and she took it from there. And then the people who are in the jobs that they're in to help make that neighborhood better might not realize it. But that health inspector came out and made a believer out of my mom and even the neighbors and the landlord, because they said, listen, here's a problem. Here's how, here are the laws that are in place to make sure this isn't an issue. And this is what you have to do. And even for the tenants, they said, well, our landlord never gave us barrels. Well, it wasn't until the inspector explained to the landlord that this is your responsibility as a landlord to provide your tenants with trash barrels. There's no reason why they have to be putting their trash out a week ahead of time and making the neighborhood look, trashy, for lack of a better word.
That's a wonderful story and a wonderful way to get into your own life of public service. And I suspect that you might now have an influx of phone calls. But so tell me, so how has it been? How has it been the startup to your job and life here in Sterling?
I'll tell you, it's been a wonderful welcome, even though all of my meetings have virtually been virtual and through Zoom and with masks on. So we kind of joke that after everyone's vaccinated or we're through this COVID phase, that we'll have to have a reunion and we'll get to meet everyone face to face.
Well, exactly, and see how many people we recognize, because I tend to not recognize people behind their mask. So Kellie, I know that the Board of Selectmen has had a meeting about the annual town meeting, and why don't you fill us in on what we can expect with that?
Sure. At last night's meeting, we actually discussed, the fact that we have the ongoing public health crisis or issues with COVID. We discussed that it would make sense, the board agreed, if we could push out the annual town meeting. The bylaw states, when you're supposed to have your town meeting and elections. This year we had slated it for May 3rd, the first Monday in May. What the board agreed to do was to push that out to June 14th and to allow us additional time and better weather so that we could have the outdoor venue again this year. We are finalizing plans. Our preference would be to do it similar to last year at the airport, but there's a lot of coordination that needs to take place in a partnership with the airport and their staff and the owner. So we are basically, trying to get to June 14th for the annual town meeting, everyone going in their cars, utilizing the electronic voting system that the town was able to acquire last year with coronavirus funding. We'd like to use that again. And this year we'll have a lot more time to plan. Last year, it was amazing when I heard about the story, what happened last year. They had 4 weeks to plan town meeting. A lot of people don't realize without town meeting, we wouldn't be able to legally spend money. So town meeting has a very important place, especially an open town meeting in a small town like Sterling. So we're looking to do the drive-in town meeting, if you will, again this year on June 14th.
I think also a lot of folks don't realize what goes into preparing the town warrant and the number of drafts and iterations that each article goes under, as well as having to be voted on and supported by the various boards and committees beforehand. So what is the status of the warrant? Because I know that last year as well, a lot of items were deferred because just because of the way that it all worked out.
Right. Well, if you think it's almost ironic if we're going to have the annual town meeting for 2 years in a row at the airport, I think of the warrant process as sort of being, air traffic control. You need to be aware of everything on the screen. You need to know when there's going to be a potential, you got to avoid the collisions. You got to smooth out the path. You have to make sure that everybody has what they need to have before you can move forward and take off. We have over 60 different articles. So imagine, that warrant. A lot of people, when I first got into this business, I heard the warrant and I thought somebody was going to come to arrest me. The warrant is really for town meeting is really just the official announcement of here's the agenda. Here's what we are proposing that needs to be voted by town meeting at the town meeting. Within the warrant. So if it's not on the warrant, and this is why we have all those deadlines, some of them are statutory, some of them are policy driven. You have deadlines, state law requires if you're gonna have a special town meeting, you need to have that warrant information 2 weeks before. If you're gonna have an annual town meeting and 1 week before. So you're dealing with a lot of timelines that are set outside of your control. This year we have the luxury of putting off luxury. I say that like it's a good thing. We have the ability to postpone town meeting because of the special legislation that the governor has voted on for us to make accommodations because of the public health situation with COVID. 60 different articles, numerous boards and committees. We've got the Board of Selectmen, you've got the FinCom, the Capital Budget Committee, you've got residents who are participating in our meetings. You also have our department heads. Every single department is going to need resources and funding to run their department, to deliver services for the coming year. All of that takes coordination, and that's why the warrant process is the sort of the legislation of the town at its most local level. So I'm sort of over here. We've got ground control, we've got air traffic control, and we're just trying to make sure that we're planning our time accordingly and we are focusing on the process, what is being approved by which committee, so that we can get that timeline, that schedule on track, so that we're all heading in the same direction to the same destination. And hopefully we'll have, a safe flight, but also one that gets us where we need to be with the amount of resources we have available to.
Now, you also mentioned FinCom, Finance Committee, and I know that at this time of the year, sorting out the budget and working through the budget must be taking up an enormous amount of your time. So I imagine that between getting annual town meeting and the budget, that this is really what is going to constitute the majority of your effort and work over these next few months. Is that correct?
It definitely is. And everything that we do on this side, leads up to the town meeting, which authorizes the spending that happens throughout the year. But what a lot of people don't understand or realize, they probably don't have to, is that budgeting is a year-round concept. It doesn't just happen once a year. We plan next year's budget now, and we get it approved, or hopefully approved, and legal. We legislate that at town meeting. Everything that we do for the budget it's a cycle. It's a constant cycle. We've been doing it for years. So what you need to do is from year to year, find ways to improve that process, make it more efficient, more effective. I would say that one of the best things that I have seen from my perspective, looking in at your process, is the consent agenda. It helps to speed things up a little, but they're all very intertwined. The budget and all of those items have to be authorized through the warrant process, through the approval process. But once it gets approved, then all the work behind the scenes begins, because you're talking about, almost a $30 million organization. Money comes in, we need to provide services, money will go out, whether that is the bulk of that is for personnel benefits. And then the rest, a lot is really uncontrollable. Those are things like our health insurance and pension costs. So if you think about it, you've got all of these moving parts, and being able to see what's in the rearview mirror, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. All of that needs to be coordinated on a very high level, but you also have to know about the smaller details, such as, somebody might think, well, I have leftover money for this project. Can I use it for something else? Yes, but there are steps and there's a process to authorize that.
Right.
And that's where the Finance Committee and the Capital Budget Committee, and also our internal staff. We have the town accountant, we've got the treasurer. So there's a lot going on, and usually we wouldn't bore you with any of these details, but you have me today, and so I'm sharing.
Well, also, I know in my experience with the town, which goes back quite a number of years now, people really are interested in this. So big news is that the annual town meeting looks like will be for Sterling, will be on June 14th, likely at the airport once again. And Kellie, I know that between now and then, I'm going to be speaking with you numerous times about the warrant and about articles as they come up and about the process. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. Welcome once again to Sterling. And I look forward to hearing all about this as the process unfolds.
Right. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone who's welcomed me here. I'm really excited. I think it's a great town, and I'm really looking forward to meeting a lot more folks as we sort of get out from underneath our wraps here.
I know everybody's really looking forward to that. So anyway, it's back to the studio with you, Victoria and Emmanuel, and we'll all look forward to hearing more from Kellie as we get closer to the annual town meeting.
Thanks so much, Lex. Hey, Emmanuel, what's on your bookshelf this week?
On my bookshelf this week is Jennifer K. Stoller's Ink-Stained Amazons and Cinematic Warriors, Superwomen in Modern Mythology. From Wonder Woman to Buffy the Vampire Slayer to the Powerpuff Girls, the roles of women have become more than just love interests and sidekicks who stand by their supermen. In her new book, Stoller shows how the female hero in modern mythology has broken through the boys' club barrier of tradition and reveals their pivotal role of crime fighters, in popular culture. It is a comprehensive, engaging, and thought-provoking guide to female detectives, metahumans, and action heroines, as well as their creators, directors, performers, and consumers. Chapter 1 starts with Wonder Woman and places her in her author's original historical context. And then she touches on just about every great and silly female superhero from the 1940s to the 2000s. Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you were inspired by Linda Carter, Gal Gadot, or Xena the Warrior Princess, you will want this book on your own bookshelf.
For Women's History Month, we wanted to shed some light on women from the area that have had an impact on history. Today, we will focus on Henrietta Swan Leavitt. Henrietta was an astronomer born in 1868 in Lancaster, Mass. She attended the Society for Collegiate Instruction of Women, receiving her bachelor's degree in 1892. And although she did additional work to earn credits toward an astronomy degree, she never actually completed that one. She did, however, become the head of the photographic photometry department at Harvard College Observatory in 1902. Her job was to study the variable stars that were recorded on photographic plates. She ended up discovering close to 2,000 variable stars, and her biggest discovery was the Cepheid variable period luminosity, which is the direct correlation between the time it takes a star to go from bright to dim and how bright it actually is. Henrietta Swan Leavitt did great work, and her contributions to astronomy were astronomical.
And before we end, we at LCCT wanted to send a big congratulations to Joseph Muley on his 20th anniversary at Thayer Memorial Library. Your dedication to the town of Lancaster and to our town's library has elevated all of us. Thank you for your service.
We'll see you next time on Community Updates.